All right, so I want to jump in real quick and show you guys a track that I'm mixing and I'm utilizing Yosh Drum Warehouse on. And I'm going to show you this. So I can't tell you the name of the artist or the song yet because it's not out. We're still in process. So I'm not going to be playing any of the audio from the background vocals or lead vocals. You probably won't even hear much of the music. We're just going to really focus on these drums here. So I'm going to pull it up here real quick. Let me solo just the drums. These are just the raw drums right here. And I got some verb on the tums and some things like that, but nothing too crazy. But what we're going to focus on is mainly the kick, the snares, and all of those things like that. So let's start with the kick here. I'm going to bring in this trigger that I have for the kick. And this is actually a preset called John Mike's Kick. This is my favorite combination for kicks. Sounds like this. And if you notice, it just adds a little bit of like top in and punch to the kick. So if I turn it off without it, see that? And then all I did was just throw an API on it after, just to kind of give it some more attack. So if I turn the API off, it sounds like this. Not too much difference, but it gives it a little bit more weight, right? So that's just that preset added called John Mike's Kick. All right, and that's my favorite kind of combination with that. Now let's move on to the snare again. This one right here is actually a preset, is actually a snare from volume 1. It's one of the legacy snares that we talk about that goes that actually is in volume 1 that Yosh has used on countless records for the last like 15 years. So this is in volume 1. There is a bundle for volume 1 if you want to get that on the site, and you can get volume 1 as well. Volume 1 is on sale, and volume 2 is on sale, but this is the legacy sample called the Brett Snare, which is one of Yosh's like staples. You're gonna hear this on the top of everything. So let's see what that sounds with the Brett Snare added. So it adds a little bit of smack. Let's listen to it in the context of the track. Now I'm going to add in a second trigger because it's all about layers, because you have dense mixes with all of these different elements going on, background vocals, all this stuff, and you're trying to get this snare to cut through the mix. This is how you do it, by layering different snares. So this next snare, this is actually a preset that we're going to use called Yosh's BR10 Instant Fat Snare, right? So the BR10 is really, really dope. It's actually I think it's a Tama 10x14 snare. So it's like those big elevation CCM snares sound like this. And then he has the room in there as well, blended. So just by adding this one, let's see what we got. Again, without it, with it. See, add some good weight to it. All right, we're gonna add in one more snare, right? And then that's this one. This is one that I created. It's another preset that I created called A Recipe for Smack. That's what this one is called. And it is the absolute snare, everybody's favorite wallet snare. And then the room for that, because we're building out this room sound without, this is a way that you can make your snare sound really big without having to add in like a lot of reverbs and things like that. Again, that's without this one. So we're crafting we're crafting a snare sound is what we're doing. It's the same thing that hip hop producers have been doing for decades, with stacking claps, stacking kicks, stacking, you know, hi-hats, all of those different things in order to create a fatter, bigger sound, you know, out of that. So that's all we're doing to build this out. So I think that sounds good, but I think it needs a little bit more here. So I'm bringing in this fourth trigger. So I'm stacking triggers, stacking snares, stacking things. And then this is another preset we created in here called Room Smack. And it's just two room sounds. And then they're detuned. One is tuned up and one of them is tuned down. So by adding this in, you get this blend on the drums. Ooh. Ooh. And it sounds nice and big and fat. Now, yes, I probably could stack in all of these snares all across, you know, these 8 different ones and blend them this way and do all of that. But I like blending different things. And when you find a blend that works with 2 snares or 2 snares in a room or whatever, you can bring those in all in one kind of swoop and really, you know, control the level. So now I got a blend that I'm controlling and I mix it in and I level all of these blends together in order to create the perfect layered snare in there. Now we do still have the original snare in there. The original snare is still in there. The snare bottom is still in there. They're all right here, and they're sounding good, and they're adding vibe to it, and we're keeping that, but we're layering it out because this is a dense mix and it's a big mix. And so when you play this out with the rest of the track, let's bring the rest of the track in. So you can hear it in the context. So this is with all of the triggers in and everything going. This is how the drums sound in the context of the mix. So you see what I'm saying now? It's cutting through. Let me play that same section without the snare triggers in. So I'm going to take out all of the triggers. I'm muting them here off screen. You can't see them here, but I'm muting them. Let's mute. Yep, let's mute this one. Mute the kick snare trigger. So all of the triggers are muted now, right? All of the triggers are muted. This is what that same section sounds like without the triggers. So you see how the snare gets lost in the mix. It just gets lost in there. So you want to make sure that you build out. That's the whole purpose of these layers. The whole purpose of these layers is to give you the maximum amount of attack that cuts through the mix without you having to do a whole lot of compression, a whole lot of, bumping up in automation. No, just layer a snare on top of it, layer a kick on top of the kick that cuts through the mix a little bit better. Maybe you got to add a little bit of EQ to that sample or whatever, but either way, you're able to come up with something that sounds like this with minimal effort, because again, it's about working smarter, not harder. Why work so hard to get drums to cut through when you can take literally 15, 20, 30 seconds and add in a couple of triggers? Because as you can see, I don't have any like EQ or anything on any of these triggers. Like there's no other plugins on there but the trigger. And now I got this drum sound. So you kind of get the vibe. It makes sense. You know, you're able to use those triggers to really craft and build your sound out, your drum sound out, to cut through really dense mixes. And I think that's really the way that we really mix in, you know, these, that's the way that we kind of get these drums to cut through these really dense mixes. So that's just a trick. And all I did was pull up a couple of presets from, you know, the warehouse that we created. Yosh created about 10 to 12 different presets. I created a handful of them to add to the mix. So you can easily just come in and pull up these presets and come up with your perfect combinations and build out your entire drums in your mix. So that's all, you know, it really takes to do that.